I don't think I was in heaven. No. I firmly believe that I was on an intelligent piloted spacecraft, or perhaps an interdimensional spiritual place and time. I was working for the Department of Defense as a contract coordinator in Saigon, South Vietnam. This event happened on May 12, 1973, and it was a very beautiful Saturday, and it was just a few days before the American combat military and their allies were to leave Vietnam in accordance with the Paris peace talks plan, the Marxist backstabbing plan. Therefore, there was much activity going on at this time. My job was to control all the contracts. On May 12th, I left work just as usual, riding on my Honda 150cc motorcycle. And as usual, I followed my buddies with whom I worked at the airbase. And my buddies most always drove a six-pack pickup truck. This truck was called a six-pack because it had a front and back seat and 4 doors, so it fit 6 people. It was a Saturday, which was our Friday, since we worked 6 days a week at that time. I always followed my buddies on my motorcycle just behind the truck. We usually headed for the Thon Bin Hotel, where most of the people I worked with lived. We would go there, kick back, and talk about everything. The war, the women, the world, and what we are going to do after we go back home to the world, America. As I rode behind the truck, we headed for a lonely bridge that went over a small branch of the Saigon River, and then we would take a right turn on a dirt road that was off the main paved road, and this shortcut was a little quicker to the hotel. Just as we reached the dirt road, I saw a commotion off to the right of the road from the tree line, and then I saw a bright light of an explosion around the pickup, and then the back window of the truck exploded, and that was the last thing I remember. I have seen the fog of battle and the haze of misfortune, but I have never seen the mist of unconsciousness that I was experiencing at this time. Dreamlike, yet a realness and a hard substance to where I was. I felt a hard surface I was standing on. I even stomped my feet to make sure that I was feeling what I thought I was feeling and seeing. The room or area I was in seemed to be real and enclosed. As I walked to a huge wall of something that resembled windows, I was greeted by a very tall person, perhaps close to 7 feet tall, that was dressed in a long off-white robe with long medium blonde hair and very white skin, almost glowing. I felt so alive and very happy, and smiling at the moment of just being there for some unknown reason. Also, when I say that I felt alive and that I was so very happy, I mean a feeling that I have never felt, nor have I ever felt that feeling thus far in my life afterward of that experience. Just then, a group of small people came from a room or area behind my left side. They were all greeting me, and I felt that I knew them and they knew me. I felt a kinship and deep sense of recognition, but I could not distinguish any facial features that would have let me know whom they were or are. Then the tall person gestured for me to go to the large windows. Without speaking through his lips, the person told me within my mind to watch the window in front of me. Just like a large screen TV, I noticed the windows changed and started to show something like a movie. Indeed, I watched myself riding my motorcycle from above, and the whole ambush was played out before my eyes in slow motion. I smiled and pointed to the action transpiring before me, and was happy, and not in shock or anxious about what was happening to my friends and to myself during the process of being killed during the ambush. I tried to look around to see those people just behind me, and just then, a large door-like wall was slowly moving open to my left, and a very bright light that was shining from the interior and slowly coming into view. I tried to look closer, but then the tall person said that I could not advance into the light. "Not just yet," he said, then begged me to continue to watch the large window screen and the ambush that was taking place. I felt so content and happy, and tried to understand what was happening to me. As I looked towards the light again, the tall person told me not to look and started to speak of many things to me. He then told me about when I was to pass into the light much later after a full life. I believe he said I would live until the age of either 97 or 107. He also told me that I would have many women in my life, although one would be my last. A woman with a pure heart and soul and a body of my natural selection, a strong, independent, but somewhat naive of world life experience, and shall have never really experienced true love of her heart and soul type of woman, although she will have loved someone very deeply. She also knew that there was something missing. She will be much younger than I, but the age difference will not matter to either of us. She will not be available to me for some time, and she will live far away, and our first face-to-face contact will not take place until many months or even years after we meet. But once you and her do meet face to face, you both will know that this union shall last until you, myself, shall then go on through the door of light. I cannot explain this statement. How can someone meet, but not face to face? I gave it no thought then. However, when I intended to ask the tall person standing next to me, why can't I go into the light now? And what is the name of the woman? The tall person all of a sudden touched my back, and like a flash of a strobe light, I was back in my body again on Earth. By this time, the army personnel had declared me dead and had placed me in the meat wagon, a truck that went to the morgue, with the other dead co-worker buddies of mine. I must have gasped for air or something, and the American Army medic yelled at his people that I was actually alive, and they took me out of the meat wagon and into an ambulance to go to the hospital. I awoke for just a few seconds, and an Army officer asked me if I wanted to go to a French hospital or an American hospital. I said, "An American hospital." Then I blacked out again. After the second day in the hospital, a Seventh-day Adventist hospital in Saigon, as I was lying in bed with tubes in and out, all over my body, a bullet in my ankle, a broken clavicle, a concussion, and several shrapnel wounds. A nurse came over to me and asked how I was feeling. I looked at her and then looked at the room, and with a big sigh I said to the nurse and myself, "Oh shit, I'm back." The nurse laughed and said, "Yes, you are back. How do you feel?" I think I just moaned and asked for some water. After a few hours of myself coming conscious again, an Army major came in my room with some of my personal gear. He proceeded to ask me where he should have my personal items delivered. He had my attaché case, sunglasses, and watch. I looked at my attaché case, and I asked, "How did you find it in the bushes?" The major was shocked. "How did you know it was in the bushes?" I told the major to have a seat and proceeded to tell him a story that he will never forget. Then I told him that I saw the whole ambush from above, and I know everything that happened. I told him that they caught one of the South Vietnamese deserters that shot at us, and he had my watch that he took off my body. I told him that all of my 6 friends were killed, and when the MPs came over to the ambush site, they killed 2 of the deserters. In addition, I told him that a red-headed MP and a tall, skinny Army medic came over to my body and declared that I was killed in action, KIA. Then you came over to confirm that I was indeed KIA, and then the medic threw a blanket over my body before they put me in the meat wagon that was going to the morgue, and that he was the officer that came on the scene, and he was wearing a combat helmet and flak jacket. He drove a Jeep with an M60 machine gun that was mounted in the back seat. I told him that he was also the one that found my motorcycle in the ditch and ordered the MPs to bring it to the pickup that they had there and put the bike in the pickup. You should have seen the major's face. His jaw dropped and he was white with shock. How did you know all of that? Because your body was over 100 feet away from the truck and in a small ditch, lower than the road, and then we put a blanket over your body. How did you know all this? I just told him the truth, and that I saw everything from above looking at a large TV screen. He just shook his head. As he was walking out of the room, he looked back at me about 4 times, and before he exited the room, he said, "Well, I guess then there is life after death." I said to him that, "You have no idea, Major." And then he said, "You know, you were under that blanket for a good 20 minutes at least." As the Major left the room, the doctor came in at the same time, and the Major asked the doctor if anyone else has come in to see me. The doctor said, "No, no one except you so far. He just woke up a few hours ago." Then the Major scratched his head, looked at me again, and gave me a thumbs up and left the room. Well, I don't think I was in heaven. No. I firmly believe that I was on an intelligent piloted spacecraft, or perhaps an interdimensional spiritual place and time. All I know for sure is that I was in a real place that had substance to my surroundings and had a hard texture floor and walls to the room. The tall person that was talking to me without speaking may have been my guarding angel, or an extraterrestrial, or perhaps one and the same. I do feel in my heart that whomever he was, he absolutely cared very much about me and my soul. I felt this much for sure. And I also know that I now have a very special personal relationship with God and those entities that were there with me now in my life. Even multitudes more than before, as I was raised as a Catholic and survived 7 grades of parochial school. I wanted so much to go to that bright, beautiful light, but I was not allowed to transcend into the realm of absolute happiness and content, at least for now. I know not what I am to do, or why I was sent back to this earthly dimension, but I do know that someone has protected me from complete death for all of my life for some reason. Because just 2 years earlier to the date, I was shot down the third time in the Vietnam War flying in a CH-46 helicopter, and I was the only survivor out of 9 other Marine souls that were KIA in that crash. Also, I have survived 2 civilian aircraft crashes. I have survived 6 car crashes. Why? I have no idea. But I know that one day, I shall know and see the reason. And also one day, I will know when I find the woman I was told about. I also feel that she is carrying half of my soul and doesn't even know about that. And when we do meet, the chemistry in our eyes shall beam to our souls and we shall be united forever.
That does it for today's video. Let me know what you thought about it in the comment below.